All right, everyone. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Judo Connection podcast. Thank you so much for tuning back in. This is your host, Mr. Michel Landry. It's a pleasure to be back here with you guys to bring you some more info, some more talk, some more, pretty much some more knowledge on the great martial art and sport of Judo. All right, so we got some great stuff to talk about on this week's episode. But first of all, I'd like to show you guys a couple of things here. Please, if you guys can, please follow me on Twitter. Here is the Judo Connection Twitter account. Please access and follow me on Twitter. Also, if you guys can, please also go to YouTube. Look for the Judo Connection podcast YouTube page. If you see here, we got episode number 1 up and about. Currently, it is right there. That's where the content's going to be. I'm working on putting the podcast, the audio version, on iTunes. That's going to be coming shortly. So please, if you guys can, follow me there. I'm also on Google+, Judo Connection Podcast. We're on Google+. So if you guys use Google+, that's a great place to find us. And so that's pretty much what we got going on. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So first thing I want to talk to you guys about on this edition, we're going to do a little roundabout, little history on Judo, pretty much what it is, when it was founded. Most of our listeners are probably judokas themselves, so a lot of you may know, but a lot of you may not. So I'm just going to touch up a little bit on it for those common listeners who want to know a little bit about Judo. So we're going to look for some history here, talk about that, and little details on it. So as many of you know, Judo is a Japanese martial art founded in 1882 by no other than the creator himself, O-Sensei Jigoro Kano. So he founded Judo in 1882 because he was an educator and he was pretty much looking for a way to adapt the well-known and respected but otherwise very watered down version of the old style of jiu-jitsu. Now, let's not mistake that for Brazilian jiu-jitsu or modern jiu-jitsu that you guys see in the UFC or what the Gracies do. That's a completely different thing. We're talking traditional jiu-jitsu, which was practiced since the early times by the samurai. Very different sort of martial art, very different. So at this time, in the late 1800s in Japan, there were various different schools, various different styles, you may say, of jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu, which others call it, in Japan. So what happened was Master Jigoro Kano practiced a lot of these different styles. He went to different schools because he obviously was a very small man, not a muscular, not a strong man, a very short, skinny, fragile man. So he wasn't a power athlete, or an athlete for that matter. He was an educator. He was a person that was very frail and wanted to learn how to defend himself and learn a style that could be adapted by the weaker man, by a person that wasn't strong. So he went to different schools, and he gained different types of styles and learnings from those different schools, and he sort of he sort of blended, which is a better word, he blended all of them together into a new style. And what he did was he took away all the deadly techniques, a lot of the eye pokes and groin shots and wrist locks and all the sort of stuff that is really great for a street fight. It's really great for a real life confrontation or obviously warrior battle, which the samurai had been doing for thousands of years. But he sort of wanted to condense and really take the most effective techniques out of jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu and create a sport out of it. Create something in which you can do what we know now as randori, which is free fighting. Because the thing about old style jiu-jitsu is that there's no way to free fight with it. There's no way to practice it live action because they're all very dangerous techniques. It's all, breaking fingers, breaking wrists, breaking hands. It's all groin shots and short kicks to the knees and palm strikes to the nose, palm strike to the sides of the head. A lot of short and very truly effective techniques, but really nothing you could use in a sport, nothing you could free practice and free fight with on a daily basis. So what he did was he took the most important things, the most functional and effective. And I think that's the main word about judo, is being effective at what you do. So he took all those techniques, he created different categories for them: shoulder throws, hip throws, foot techniques, or foot sweeps, different types. And he also created two more sections, which were the sacrifice techniques. And obviously on the ground, he created, he adapted and brought in techniques from jiu-jitsu and brought the most effective ones, which were the arm bars or arm locks, the choke holds, and the pins. So he brought these three elements and brought them into the ground fighting of judo. Now, a big misconception that a lot of people have is that judo is only stand-up, which is so not true. It's so far removed from the reality. Judo is 50-50. There's actually even more ground techniques than there are standing techniques. So this is a huge misconception that judo, sorry about that. It's a huge misconception that judo does not have a lot of ground fighting. This is really not true. And as you can see here, we have the nagewaza, which is kuzushi, tsuki, kake. These are pretty much the steps in which you engage a technique. What I want to show you guys is the ground part of it, which I can even see here. Doesn't really show it here. Anyway, you guys get what I'm trying to say, that pretty much there's a total aspect of the ground fighting that was introduced by Jigoro Kano when he created judo. So pretty much, let's not confuse that. Let's not forget that. Now, did judo step away from it little by little? And yes, they did. And it got to the point that we are today in modern Olympic style judo, where we've very much neglected the groundwork, and it's pretty much non-existent. It's very low percentage in fights. If you look at modern high-level professional fights, they don't really go to the ground that much. They don't really go to the ground. There's not much time that's given to fighters in the ground. So the reality is that modern judo doesn't really have a lot of groundwork. But that's beside the point. The point is that he created this style, and the beauty of judo when it came out is that it was the first martial art that you could really free fight without getting hurt, or at least getting hurt in a very low percentage, because there's no strikes. So even though in the katas there are strikes, in the katas, which are basically forms like in karate or taekwondo or any type of other traditional martial art that uses katas, there are katas in judo. Of course there are, but in modern Olympic style judo or modern sport judo, there's really no katas. People don't use them because they're not effective for fighting. They're only effective for learning different types of forms, etc., etc. So basically, strikes were pretty much neglected as judo went changing and morphing into what we know as of judo today. But point is that judo came out, it was incredibly successful, and obviously there was opposition, as we all know. There's always opposition to everything. So what happened? The traditional jiu-jitsu schools opposed it. And what happened? There was a competition that took place in which judo went against the top jiu-jitsu schools at the time, and judo won. Not surprisingly, because judo truly was more effective. It was a much more effective way of winning a fight. At this point, of course, we've got to remember this is late 1800s, early 1900s. So Vale Tudo, a lot of this stuff didn't really exist. It was pretty much just boxing, wrestling, judo, and all the other traditional martial arts that existed in Asia, like the traditional kung fu, karate. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't founded yet, although I'm sure that the roots were there. And Aikido wasn't founded yet, and I'm not sure if Taekwondo was yet. But you get the point. Point is that Judo was developed. So what happened? Master Jigoro Kano, being an educator at heart, he took his prime students and sent them as emissaries to every country in the world. So what happened was Judo was shown to people in various different countries. He sent emissaries to the United States, emissaries to Europe, emissaries to the Caribbean and Central America, emissaries to South America, emissaries to various regions of Asia, emissaries to Russia, everywhere in the world. I mean, if you look nowadays, Judo is the only martial art / sport, and sport for that matter, following soccer, there's practice in every continent in the world. So the only sport that's practiced more in the world than judo is soccer. So that's big. Think about that for a second. Obviously, soccer is a whole different deal. It's a team sport. It's played with a ball. But if you compare to all the other sports that exist, basketball, football, baseball, there's so many other sports that exist. Judo is number 2. So think about that for a second. And as a martial art, it's number 1 in the entire world. So it's the most practiced martial art in the world, and don't forget that. So basically, what happened was Judo was spread all across the world, and that's how modern day Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu as we know it today, was founded. It was the only reason why it was founded, because a Japanese emissary, obviously much later than the foundation of Judo, it was decades later, a man called Mitsuyo Maeda, which actually lost favor with the Kodokan because he started getting into more show fights. He started getting into more real fist fights. He started challenging boxers, wrestlers, catch wrestlers, or catch as can as people know it too. So he went about to show that Judo was superior, and he went about that. So what happened? He ended up in Brazil after rolling down the entire North America. He was in Cuba. He was in States. He was in various different places. He ended up in Brazil, and this is where he meets the father of the founding fathers of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which are Carlos and Helio. He meets their father, and they were people don't know this, or they may, but the Gracie family was a prominent family in Brazil. So they brought Maeda in, and they gave him sanctuary, and they helped him out. So in return, Maeda showed the Gracies judo, not jiu-jitsu. He showed them judo. Now, was it a different style of judo back then? Of course it was. It was, 80 years ago? 90 years ago? It was a long time ago. Judo was very different than what people see today. But we can't forget that it was the root. It is where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is founded. If you look at the base, if you look at the foundation of Brazilian or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it's very similar to Judo. The gi is very similar. The belt system is very similar. It is very similar. Now, did it morph into something else? Of course it did. Every martial art morphs. I mean, karate, there's sport karate, there's point karate, there's full contact karate, there's karate with less contact. There's many different types of karate. There's many types of taekwondo. There's many types of wrestling. There's Greco-Roman. There's freestyle. There's folk style or fork style, which is collegiate. So there's different styles. So basically, yes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu morphed. It didn't stay with the judo root. It morphed. It took things from sambo, took things from catch-as-can wrestling. It took things from various different sports. Now, what's the difference? The big difference between judo and modern-day Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that judo remained intact. It didn't take in techniques, didn't take in things from other martial arts. It kept what it already had, and obviously it became an Olympic sport in 1964 in the Tokyo Olympics, and it took a different route. It became a sport, a Olympic sport, rather than a traditional or a regular martial art, which is what happened with jiu-jitsu in the beginning, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And that's sort of what happened. But we do see nowadays that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is going more and more towards the sports side. If you look at Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the past 10, 12 years, it's really gotten deep into more of a sporting realm. You see the ADCC championships, which are the Abu Dhabi ones. You see the Polaris. You see the Eddie Bravo Invitationals. You see the IBJJF competitions. So what have they done? They've created a sport out of it. Why? Because that's the only way that people can practice it. You can't have people trying to fist fight people like the Gracies used to do in those Gracie videos. That's beautiful, but you can't have little kids doing that. So what do? You make a sport out of it. So that's what jiu-jitsu have done. But what's happened, it's gone too far into the sporting side. They're trying to bring it back with those new federations that Rickson has made, where he's trying to bring back the self-defense aspect of it, which has been lost in it. And to tell you the truth, it's been lost from judo as well. And judo lost it a long time ago. I mean, modern Olympic sport judo has no self-defense in it. It's never even spoken of. It's never even taken into consideration. So what's happening now is that jiu-jitsu is trying to, a lot of masters and high-level people in jiu-jitsu are trying to not go make that mistake that judo made a long time ago, which is to completely go to the sports side and neglect the self-defense side. But we have to remember, judo was founded as a sport. Brazilian jiu-jitsu was founded as a self-defense art. It was created for self-defense, not for sport. It was created to defend yourself. And same rules apply. Smaller man being able to defeat a bigger man. Only difference is that Jigoro Kano used the founding statement of using your opponent's strength against himself. So what do? You use the opponent's momentum. That's why in judo, you can have a 100-pound judoka throw a 250-pound judoka effortlessly. Why? Technique, leverage, just doing things the right way so you can throw a person. Jiu-jitsu, same way. You can have a 100-pound fighter submit a 200-pound fighter. It can happen. Is it likely between two high-level jiu-jitsu players? No, it's not. But is it likely if a 100-pound purple or brown or black belt or even a blue belt rolls with a 200-pound person that doesn't know what they're doing? Of course they're going to win, yes. But we have to remember that inside the sport, with two knowledgeable people, weight does matter. But that's a whole different thing. So basically, getting back to the history part of judo, that's pretty much what happened. It was developed. A lot of people don't know this, but actually the president, Teddy Roosevelt, practiced judo himself, which is a big reason why judo entered into the United States. Teddy Roosevelt was a huge fan of it. He met Jigoro Kano himself. So that's really, really cool. So basically, we see that judo is really propagated, but unfortunately, for some reason, it's just not as big as in the United States as it is in countries like Europe or South America or obviously Japan or other countries in Asia like Mongolia, China, South Korea that have a lot of judo. Now, why is that? We don't know. Could it be because there's more competition? I think so. There is a lot more competition in the States, martial arts wise. There's more options. There's more people that come here from different countries with their martial arts to try and teach them and propagate them. But we can't forget that, like I said before, judo is the biggest martial art. It's the most practiced martial art in the world. We can't forget that. And it's an Olympic sport, which not a lot of martial arts are. The only other martial arts at Olympic sports are Taekwondo and wrestling and boxing, but wrestling and boxing aren't really considered to be traditional martial arts. Even though they do fall under the martial arts realm, they're not in Budo, which is the original term for martial arts, or the art of self-defense. But to me, they are martial arts. They really are. So judo is the biggest one in that realm. Taekwondo is second place. And then we have boxing and wrestling, like I mentioned. So what's been going on in the last couple of decades? Judo has been changing. I mean, it's been changing more and more. and more rules have been applied, more and more things have been changed to where we see what we have today, which is a very limited version of what it used to be. No leg grabbing, a lot of illegal movements, breaking two hands, defensive positionings. A lot of counterattacks are illegal. No wrestling suplexes straight backwards. And the ground game is also, truthfully, ever since Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really has taken the scene, Judo has been exposed for having a much more limited ground game. That it's real. We have no heel hooks, we have no knee bars, we have no ankle locks, we have no twisters, there's no guillotines, there's no small joint manipulation, so there's no wrist locks, none of that. So is that good? Is that bad? It's a little bit of both. In reality, it does make the ground game a little safer in the sense that there's less stuff that you get caught with. But at the same time, it would be nice to have those techniques be added to Judo. It would be nice. It would change the game a lot to include techniques like, ankle locks or not wrist locks. Those would be a little too dangerous. But ankle locks, knee bars. Problem is that Judo refereeing is not as active as Jiu-Jitsu refereeing, or even mixed martial arts refereeing, MMA refereeing for that matter. So it would be a lot dangerous because Judo referees don't intercede in the action. They simply call the ippon when there's a tap. And now, thankfully, judokas are a lot more disciplined, and there's not that culture of break the arm or choke the person to sleep. It's a lot more about just getting the ippon and winning. It's not that much about choking or submitting your opponent, because there are other ways of winning rather than jiu-jitsu where the only way to win is to submit. So people really do go for those arm bars to try and break that arm. So it's a little different in the mentality of it. So that would have to be an adaptation of it if that would happen, which I really don't think it will. But who knows? You never know. Things could happen. The way things are going in the Olympic scene, how wrestling almost got taken out of the Olympics, being the oldest form of martial arts in the new world. Wrestling has been in the culture forever. It's been in the Olympics since its inception. So we have to be careful. We have to be very careful about what we do. And the reality is that it has to be attractive for spectatorship. People need to be interested in what they're watching. People need to like and understand what they're seeing. The problem that jiu-jitsu is facing nowadays, and the reason why it hasn't been able to explode and gain widespread notoriety, is because it's so difficult to understand. Judo is a lot more easy to understand, even though there's a lot of rules and a lot of penalties for not attacking or defending, blah, blah, blah. But it's simple. You throw your person on the back, you win the fight. You pin the person for 20 seconds, you win the fight. You choke the person or arm lock or arm bar the person and they tap, you win the fight. It's very simple. Jiu-jitsu, yes. It's very simple as well. You get a tap, you win. But if you're finding point jiu-jitsu, it's a whole other ball game. Why? Because there's a million ways to make points. Knee on belly, grabbing the back, getting a toss or a throw, sweeping the person. There's a million ways to get points. And if you don't know what you're watching, and you see two guys rolling on the floor for 4 or 5 minutes, and no one taps, and all you see is sweep, back take, or throw, back take, sweep, back take, submission attempt, and you don't see anyone tap, you don't know who won, because you have to see who's getting the most points. It's a lot like wrestling. You don't know who's winning because there's a million ways to make points. You can grab the back, you can lay the person down on the floor, you can turn them and wheelbarrow them on the floor, or you can get a quarter Nelson and put them on their back. So it's very complicated. There's a lot of points and a lot of things added up, a lot of penalties, a lot of defensive things. So that's why wrestling sort of was in the position where it was about to get removed from the Olympics, because it was just getting way too boring. People weren't liking it. If you look at wrestling in the 80s, back when wrestling was huge, 80s and 90s, wrestling was an amazing a spectator sport. People would fill up gyms and fill up, places to watch people wrestle. If you go back to what's his name, the guy from Foxcatcher, the brothers, I forget their names. Let me look them up here. What's his name here? Forget their name. Schultz. If you look at the Schultz brothers back in the 80s, they were huge. Dan Gable times, Kurt Angle. You saw all of these freestyle wrestlers. Wrestling was huge. But what happened? It got boring. It got too complicated. People stopped watching it. So that's a big reason why, wrestling was almost taken out of the Olympics. Same thing was going on with judo. It was getting way too complicated. It was getting way too boring. So that's why the rules have changed so much. That's why they took the judges out of the mat. That's why they expanded the safety area. It looks more grand. It looks bigger. It looks nicer. There's not as much intervention in the mat itself. So it looks a lot better. And what did they do? They made the gis lighter. The gis are a lot lighter than they used to be. Back in the day, 10, 12 years ago, gis used to be so hard. They used to be like rock, super hard. Gis nowadays can't be more than 750 grams, so they're very light. Why? So they're easier to grab. So you can throw people more. Because if you have a guy with a super stiff gi, and every time the person moves and breaks your grip, breaks your fingers, or peels all your skin off, it's a lot harder to throw. So what happens? They made the gis lighter. It helps. To be honest, it also helps the judokas because they're a lot lighter. You don't have as much weight on you. You're more mobile. So that's really nice. But yeah, basically, things change. Things change a lot. And jiu-jitsu is right now going through a lot of changes. People don't realize that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is what? In the States, it's only 20 years old. 25. It's going to be 25 years old pretty soon. Ever since the Gracies came here, let's say 30 years. Judo is what? 1882. It's more than 100 years old. And look at the changes we've had. So, why do I talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so much? Because it's what's closest to us. It's our cousin, in a way. We're cousins. It really is very close to us. It's what's more similar to us in how it looks, mentality, the aspect of it. And then, of course, there's the nogi, which is completely different. If you look at how nogi is run, and the way gi is, it's very different. Very different mentalities. People fight very differently. You see a lot more leg locks, a lot more knee bars, a lot more people attacking the legs rather than attacking arms and necks. But why? Because there's no gi to grab. It's a lot easier to go for it. When there's a gi, it's easier to defend all those techniques. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. So that's pretty much a little rundown on what's been going on with that. And then, so let's take a little talk about legends of the sport of judo. People that if you want to know judo, if you want to learn the history, you need to know who these people are. So first of all, obviously, Jigoro Kano. You need to know who this man is. He is the founder of judo. He is the godfather of judo. He's the person we owe everything to. So he's obviously number one. And then who's next? His key students. We have Mifune. We have Mifune, who was very important. Kyuzo Mifune. He is one of the oldest students of Jigoro Kano. This is a really interesting picture we see here of them both. So he's one of the oldest students. He was one of the first 10th dans as well. So we have him, and then we also have a lot of other people that were his original students. And as we move more towards modern day judo, we have what I call the Mount Rushmore of Japanese judo. So we start with Yasuhiro Yamashita. This man is also huge. He is a Olympic gold medalist, 4-time world champion. Yatsuhito was really a big deal in the late 70s, early 80s, deep into the 80s. He was a beast. He was one of the best open weight fighters from Japan. So we have him. We also have Hitoshi Saito, which was his nemesis. Rest in peace, Mr. Saito. He's also a 2-time Olympic champion, 1-time world champion, 1-time silver medalist, and then other championships in Asian competition. So Saito was sort of the next generation after Yamashita. Even though they were rivals late into Yamashita's career, they really were two of the best in the world at this time. So we have them both. They're on that Mount Rushmore. And then we go to no other than Mr. Koga. We have Toshihiko Koga. Now this man is a beast. If you guys have seen a highlight video of judo, he's in it. So he's a gold medalist in Barcelona, silver medalist in Atlanta, 3-time world champion, bronze in the world as well. He was a savage. He was also, or is currently, the coach for the women's team in Japan. So he's a beast as well. So we have Koga. We have Yoshida as well, another staple. A lot of people know him because he is also in MMA. He fought in Pride Fighting Championships. So a lot of people know him. He is a gold winner from Barcelona. He's also a world champion and 2-time silver, 1-time bronze. He was very good. He was 78 kilos. Ended up at 90 kilos in Birmingham. So he sort of went up and down. Remember that weight classes were very different when he was competing. So what was 78 ended up as 81, 86 turned to 90. So those weight classes changed. So Yoshida, super big. So we have, there's a long list of guys on the the best that Japan's produced. But these are sort of like the marquee guys that most people should know who they are. And then as we move more towards modern, much more recent judokas, we have Mr. Kosei Inoue. He is another beast, 3-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist. He's best known for his Ushimata, which is the best I've ever seen. So he's very famous. We have Mr. Shinohara, Shinichi. So it's Shinichi Shinohara. He is a silver medalist at the Sydney Olympics. He had a very controversial match against David Douliet from France. A very controversial match that ended up not going to his favor. He is 2-time world champion, silver medalist in the Worlds, and 2 bronze in the Worlds. So he's also very, very good. We have other really good guys. Nomura, which currently holds the record for most Olympic gold, if I'm not mistaken. He has 3 Olympic gold medals. I think that's the most out of anyone, if I'm not mistaken. And there's also a lot of other guys. Shinji Hosokawa. He has a gold and a bronze. Nomura is obviously one of the most known guys in the lighter weight classes. And so there's a lot of guys from Japan that are super famous. A lot of guys. But those are some of the staples. You have Keiji Suzuki. He won gold in Beijing. He's very good. Satoshi Ishii, great as well. Shohei Ono, which is creating quite the bang nowadays in modern judo. Ryoko Tani, she has a bunch of medals in the Olympic Games. She's competed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She has 5 Olympic medals. That is ridiculous. And she has, look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 world championships. Jesus Christ. That's a lot. All at 48 kilos. Wow. So she's a savage. She's a savage. And then we have Ushishiba as well. Very good as well. 2 gold medals, Athens and Beijing, 66 kilograms. And then we move to other judokas outside of Japan, other famous judokas. You guys may know Mr. Neil Adams, incredibly famous judoka. That's not him. Here he is, Mr. Neil Adams. He is the voice of judo. He is the voice. He is the guy that's on when you're listening to the competitions. He's the commentator. So he is also a very, very, very well decorated judoka. He's a 2-time Olympic silver medalist, 1-time world champion, and he has, a lot of European championships. So he is one of the powerhouses of British judo. So he's a very, very famous guy. So we have Neil Adams. We have other staples, guys like David Douillet. He was very, very good as well. He won 2 Olympic golds, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, so he won gold in Atlanta, gold in Sydney, and bronze in Barcelona. So he's a staple of French judo. He's sort of the god. He's sort of the guy that dominated the open category before Teddy Riner came up. So he's very, very famous, very good judoka. He's currently in politics. So we have them, and some of the other guys that people really know about is Mr. Ilias Iliadis, the Greek legend himself. This guy is super famous. Why? Not only does he have a lot of great results, a lot of things he's achieved, he became very famous in the 2010s because he stapled the Fighting Films judo gi, which is a very nice judo gi that a lot of people like. So Ilias Iliadis is a great Greek judoka. He retired after the Rio Olympics, but he won a gold in Athens, bronze in London. He's a 3-time world champion, 2-time European champion. He's got every title there is to get. So he has everything. He's really, really, really good. He was very interesting to watch because of his grip fighting style, his powerhouse techniques. I mean, he really put everything into what he did. So he's super, super famous. I mean, we also have, of course, the reigning, defending, undisputed, every single word you can come up with, champion Teddy Riner, which is just taking the judo world by storm. 2-time Olympic medalist and 7-time world champion. So he's a beast. He's also a world open weight champion and a 5-time European champion. So this guy is on the mark right now. He's only 27 years old. He's a savage. Really, no one's come even close to beating him. So they call him the Giant. He's very, very big. He's like 6'8". Wow, 289 pounds. So he's a beast. So he's dominating right now. And then let's go to the American judokas, which is what we should talk about. I think the first person that everyone should know in American judo is no other than Mr. Mike Swain. He's the staple of American judo. Mr. Mike Swain, one of the first to get an Olympic medal in the Olympics for the U.S. He won. Well, actually, he didn't win a medal in the Olympics. He won the World Championship, if I'm mistaken. Sorry. So, World Championships. He won gold in 1987. He had some great matches with Mr. Koga. So, he went back and forth with Koga a lot. And he's a very amazing judoka, American judoka, that really brought a lot of notoriety to American judo. So, he's very good. He's one of the legends. And then we go to a guy that really is, I think, the most well-known American judoka there is, Jimmy Pedro. He is a 2-time bronze medalist, 1-time world champion, 7th degree black belt. So he's currently actually the Olympic coach for the judo team. So he is another amazing judoka for the States. He was the coach for the first ever gold medal winner in the Olympics, Kyla Harrison, in 2012. So he's amazing. And then we go to another man called Jason Morris, another very famous judoka. He won silver in Barcelona in the half middleweight class. Another very, very, very good judoka. And then there's other Olympic medal winners. These three were sort of from the same time. As we go more into modern day judo, we have Ronda Rousey, who won bronze in Beijing. Obviously, she's achieved a lot more fame through MMA, but before she was the UFC bantamweight champion, she was a world silver medalist and the Olympic Games bronze medalist. So she was a very good judoka before she was ever in MMA. And then we have the queen of judo, Miss Kyla Harrison, two-time Olympic gold medalist, sixth degree black belt in judo. She is a beast. She's really the best. I mean, she is the best American judoka there is. There's no one better than her. So there's her. There's Mr. Travis Stevens, another very famous judoka. He's also delved into the world of jiu-jitsu. He's got a silver medal that he won recently in Rio, two-time Pan American champion in the games, one-time Pan American game regular championship. So he's very good, very, very well-known, respected judoka. And there's other people. There's Marty Malloy. She's a silver medalist, bronze medalist, pardon me. She's a bronze medalist in London. So we've got them. And then there's a lot of other, I think they're the only Olympic medalist from the USA. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see here. I think they're the only ones. Let's make sure. Let's see here. So there's, let's see. Doesn't say what medal they won, though. Let's see here. Wow, so Jimmy Pedro went to 4 Olympics. And Jason Morris went to a bunch of them too. Wow, so they were actually... So in 1992, all 3 of these men were in the same Olympics. Jimmy Pedro in under 52 kilos. Wow, he was very light. Mike Swain at under 71 and Jason Morris under 78. And then before that, Swain and Morris were in the 88 Olympics. Kevin Asano as well. Oh, so it says the places here. I'm sorry. Never mind. So Jimmy Pedro got bronze in these Olympics. Jason Morris got silver in the 92 Olympics. And then Mike Swain. See, I knew Mike Swain got a medal in the Olympics. He got a bronze at Seoul. I knew it. And then Kevin Asano got silver. So I was right. And then in 84, Eddie Liddy got bronze. Robert Berland got silver. Wow. And then what else? We have Alan Koach, bronze in 76. Before that, we had Jim Bregman, bronze in 64. Oh, so they're actually all here listed. So it's Ronda Rousey, Jimmy Pedro, Jason Morris, Margaret Castro, Mike Swain, Lynn Rothke, Kevin Asano, Bobby Berland, Eddie Liddy, Alan Koach, and Jim Bregman. Wow, there is a lot more U.S. Olympic medalists than people know. Interesting. So people really should look into this so they can know their history for their country, to know what people have won. So that's interesting. So, wow, so there's a lot more people than we know. But yes, there's a lot of great American judokas, but judo really has to be grown more in the U.S. It really needs to expand more and really gain more traction. There's no reason why it shouldn't. I mean, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is huge in the U.S. There's no reason why judo shouldn't be. There really is no reason. I really think that it has to be promoted the right way. It has to be brought into people's eyes more so that people can really gain more interest, because it really is exciting. I mean, judo really is the marquee grappling style. I mean, it's the funnest one. It's the one with the biggest throws, the hardest throws. It's the one with the most action. It really is, in my opinion, number one in the gi grappling scene. It really should be number one. So anyway, that's a little history for you guys. A little chatter talk there on the Olympic medalists from the U.S. All these great men and women should be recognized for what they've done for U.S. Judo. So yeah, that's some information for you guys. That's pretty much what we got. So once again, thank you guys for tuning back in to the Judo Connection podcast. It's been great to have you guys. Please, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, let's really blow this thing up. I mean, without you guys, I really can't grow this. I really can't get it out to more people. So please, guys, if you like this podcast, if you like the info that I'm bringing to you guys, if you like the things that I'm talking about, please go on Twitter, share the page, follow me, go to YouTube. This is big. This is where YouTube is really going to help. Go to YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it on your Facebook, share it on your Twitter, share it everywhere. I'm on Instagram as well. Look for me on Instagram, Judo Connection. I'm on Google Plus right here. Obviously, there's a Facebook group. You guys can go there too, Judo Connection Podcast or just Judo Connection. So guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. This is Mr. Landry with the Judo Connection Podcast. See you guys soon, and keep the Ippons coming.